Okay, Sam, let's practice that kick of yours. Show me what you got.
Here goes nothing.
Okay. If you're gonna reach the goal, you're gonna need a lot more force than that.
It's not force I need, Mia. It's skills. I'm just not so great at soccer.
Sam, skills aren't gonna do you any good if the ball doesn't move. And if you want motion, you need force. Watch.
Now that's what I call a kick.
Thanks. What it really is force. A force is any push or pull on an object.
And your kick was quite the push.
Definitely. Before, the ball was just sitting there, waiting to be moved. The force of my kick sent the ball into motion. The crazy thing is, if my kick was the only force pushing on the ball, then it would just keep on moving. It would never stop.
That's impossible.
No, it's not. It's inertia, the tendency of an object to resist change in its motion. Inertia is what kept the ball still before I kicked it, and keeps it moving once a force is applied. Once something starts moving, inertia will just keep it going.
But what if that was like a bowling ball you just kicked? Bet inertia couldn't move it so far.
Well, a bowling ball would have barely even moved with the tiny amount of energy you kicked with. It's got a lot more mass than a soccer ball, and objects with more mass respond more slowly to force because their mass actually increases their inertia.
So that means it's harder to move things with a lot of mass and harder to stop them, right?
Exactly. But once you get those masses moving, inertia takes right over and keeps things rolling, just like the soccer ball. Well,
Unless I stink as bad at kicking bowling balls as I do soccer balls?
No, unless another force is applied to it, like gravity pulling it down, or friction. Friction is a force that acts against moving objects.
Is that what made my ball stop?
Well, that's part of it, yeah. Friction acts between surfaces that touch. The friction that stopped the ball was caused by the bumpy, rough texture of the grass. The force of friction fought against the force of the kick.
And it looks like friction won against your kick, too.
Looks like you're right. That ball's done rolling for now.
Definitely. So then how do we beat the force of friction and get the ball to keep moving?
Well, the more friction there is...
Oh, the more force you need to apply?
Exactly. Or more newtons.
Fig newtons.
No, Sam. A newton is a measure of force. Anyway, you were right. Greater force equals a greater change in movement. And the more force you want, the more energy you'll need.
Of course.
Aha. Now you say of course, but when you kicked that ball earlier, I didn't see you put much energy into it.
Well, I had no idea I was fighting a battle against friction. Now I know just what it takes.
Not so fast. Sometimes, friction's not the only thing you're fighting against. Gravity is another force that can work against motion.
Whew. Friction, mass, gravity. No wonder this soccer business is so hard. That's like a whole team against one rolling ball.
Well, you just gotta come to the field in full force, Sam. Ready to give it one more shot?
Well, if you're talking about the basics of force, I think I've got that down. A force is a push, like a kick, or a pull that acts on an object. We need force to set objects into motion, and the greater an object's mass, the more force that's required to move it. Force not only moves things, it stops them too. Friction is a force that acts against motion and can stop an object in its tracks.
But not this time. Go for the goal, Sam.
Oops. Guess I'm quite the force to be reckoned with now.
Review Target 1. Demonstrate and calculate how unbalanced forces change the speed or direction of an object's motion.
Man, I can't wait to see what my birthday activity is this year. You're the best robot pal a kid could ever... No. I think I might just answer this letter. Dear Tim and Moby, if forces are invisible, how do we know they exist? And how do they work? Thanks, Caitlin C. Forces are at work all the time, acting on everything around us. We can't see them, but some of their effects are pretty obvious. Like any time an object changes speed or direction. At its most basic, a force is a push or a pull, and it always involves two or more objects. Something providing the push or pull, like Moby, and the thing it affects, like, me. Well, it's never really that simple. Objects usually have lots of forces acting on them at the same time. Each one has a magnitude, the size of the force, and a direction. Put in fancy science terms, we say force is a vector quantity. Like right now, we are pushing in opposite directions. But our forces are in balance, canceling each other out. That's why I'm not moving. The sum of the forces, or net force, is 0. 0 newtons, to be precise. That's the unit we use to measure force. It's named after Isaac Newton, the physicist who figured a lot of this stuff out. To get me in motion, you need to exert an unbalanced force on me. Ah! That's any push or pull where the net force is not 0. I am not getting in that thing. What? You're just trying to distract me, but fine. Right now, there are 3 main forces accounting for our movement. The engines are pulling the plane forward. There's friction, the resistance the surface puts on anything sliding over it. And drag, which is basically the friction of air molecules. Yeah, you would think the force of the engines must be greater than friction and drag. After all, we're moving forward. But notice how still it feels in here? If the forces were out of balance, we'd feel the push, and we'd be able to observe its effects. Well, we'd see a change in the plane's speed or direction. The combination of these two values is called velocity. We're not speeding up or slowing down, and we're heading in a straight line. So the net force on the plane is 0, same as if we weren't moving at all. We're going to need to accelerate if this hunk of junk is going to get off the ground. In physics, acceleration isn't just speeding up. It's any change in velocity, including speed-ups, slowdowns, and turns. There's a reason you can feel it when a car or a plane accelerates. It means there's an unbalanced force being applied to it and to you. Yep, the plane has to generate enough upward force to overcome gravity. It's a little different than the forces we've talked about so far. Friction, drag, you pushing me, those are all contact forces. They're between objects that are touching. Gravity is a non-contact force. It can affect objects that are separated, like the Earth and this plane. Magnetism and the electrical force are non-contact too. Like all non-contact forces, gravity acts through a field, an invisible area of influence. Fields get weaker the farther out you go from their source. But even way up here, Earth's gravitational field is still plenty strong, which is why I am absolutely not Oh, hi. Yep, the gravitational force is pulling us down, hard. It's opposed by drag, which is resisting our downward motion. The two forces are way unbalanced, that's why we're still accelerating. But the faster we go, the more drag increases. Eventually, those two forces will fall into balance. There we go. Our velocity is steady, which means we've stopped accelerating. So the net force on us is now 0. That's why it doesn't feel like we're falling anymore. More like floating. When we pull our cords, our parachutes will increase drag, so there will be a sudden, unbalanced force upward. Oof! But as we slow down, drag decreases. Eventually, drag and gravity balance again, and our velocity levels off. Hey, you know what? This was the best birthday present ever. Oh, you.
Review target 2. Compare and contrast potential and kinetic energy.
The rolling boulder crashing down the mountain. That's kinetic energy. Kinetic. The boulder sitting high upon the mountain. That's potential energy. Potential energy. motion is kinetic. Energy that's waiting is potential. But whether it's kinetic or potential, both of them are energy. Olay! You stretch your rubber band and then release it. That's kinetic energy. Kinetic. You stretch your rubber band and then you hold it. That's potential energy. Potential. Energy in motion is kinetic. Energy that's waiting is potential. But whether it's kinetic or potential, both of them are energy. Olay! The heat that comes when gasoline is burning, that's kinetic energy. Kinetic. The energy that gasoline is stored up, that's potential energy. Potential. Energy in motion is kinetic. Energy that's waiting is potential. But whether it's kinetic or potential, both of them are energy. Olay!
Hopefully you're still here. If so, this is a dropper popper. It's a little toy most of you've probably seen before. It's very pliable and it can be turned inside out. So if you're one of our favorites that made it to the end of the video, that is awesome. If you go and explain potential and kinetic energy of a popper to your teacher, she'll give you one to keep. Good job.